Hello everyone and welcome. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the top 5 scams in Zimbabwe. But of course, these scams can happen anywhere in the world. But before I get started, I'd like to say thank you for those of you that filled in the form to apply to get your website designed for free. So I am looking at those applications, and those that qualify, I will be sending emails out this week. Anyway, let's start off with the first one, the chicken business. So if you want to go into the chicken business, you really have to keep your eyes open at all times, because a scam that usually happens there is, let's say you buy 4 bags of feed. So what happens now is the workers will take 1 bag and replace it with maybe a bag of wheat or a bag of maize scraps. So it's very difficult to detect, because this can happen so fast without even you seeing that. Therefore, all you'll see is maybe the output of the chickens, maybe not the optimal sizes. So that will be the telltale sign. But if you're new to this, again, it's very difficult to know if the sizes of your chickens are really the size of the chicken. Now, these guys can also be extreme to a point where they will be replacing your proper feed with more of this nonsense to feed the chickens. So the output, of course, is going to be really, really messed up. So to really get on top of it, you're going to need a very good CCTV on your farm, or you need a really trusted person on the ground. The third way is to have an automated feeding system, because that way you put everything in the silo and then it just automatically happens. If someone is going to go up the silo to try and take the feed out, then you've got a very serious problem, okay? Anyway, let's move on to the next one, the car parts. Now, if you have a car and you wanted to get it serviced or fixed, you really need to make sure you are there, because while they're fixing one part, they can be removing another part. And this part they remove can be sold back to you when you realize that there's a problem with that part. So it's most likely you'll go to that person, or they can even say during that time they are repairing your car, they could actually say, hey, you know what, did you know that this part of your car is not actually working correctly? It's about to break down. So, just keep an eye on it, right? So what they do is they will put an old one there to replace yours. So of course, when you drive, you start feeling that, oh, that part I was told is not going to be performing well. Let me go back to the same guys, and they will sell you your original part, and the scam lives on. It continues and continues. I know it's messed up, but again, you really need to keep your eyes open on this one. Or if you can, you definitely need to make sure that the person that's repairing your car or fixing your car needs to be someone you trust, or it has to be through perhaps a company, because at least you can sue the company. Okay, let's move on to the next one, the retail store. Now, this one here is a bit of a funny one, because it is very difficult to detect. So imagine this. Let's say you have some wholesale place or a retail store, and you're selling your general products, maybe it's drinks, maybe it's groceries and so on. So if you're not available at that place, what can happen is the workers will buy their own products, stock them in your premises, sell that while yours is still there. So you'd go back, do your stock taking, and you realize that everything adds up. It seems to be like everything is okay, but the only problem there is the sales won't be happening as often. So they'll first sell their stuff and then move on to selling your stuff. Very difficult to detect. So again, you really need to keep your eyes open on this one. This is a very common one. So when it comes to selling anything, retail, or even, your basic, selling stuff on the street or whatever it is, you got to have someone you trust, because they'll sell their produce first before they sell yours. So in the end, you're losing out on perhaps maybe it's refrigeration. You're the one who has to pay the bill for the electricity, or you have installed a complete solar system to run your refrigeration, but you've actually done it for your workers without even you knowing it. So that's a really messed up situation. So again, you could try and put cameras to perhaps maybe see what is happening, or at least find some sort of an insider guy you can pay off for you to get this information out. Okay, let's move on to number 4, the borehole scam. Now, this one here is very painful, because this is something that can happen to anyone, And even if you do a lot of research, in fact, my past two videos were about the borehole. And a lot of people were saying, oh, you should have done your research. Guys, you know, when it comes to water, it's something that's very emotional. Even if it's residential or even farming, it's a very, very emotional thing. So chances are the person that's going to come and tell you that there's water, you're just going to likely going to believe in them because you're making an emotional decision. Secondly, you have no way of proving them wrong or to say, no, this is not the case or whatever, you know. Yes, I know at the sighting time, you can choose 3 different people to sight on the same ground. And if they go to the same area, then chances are you'd say, okay, that's the spot. But in most cases, that's not the case. So what I found out was there's 2 prices. There is a price for the dry hole. They call it dry hole policy. And then there's a wet hole policy. So these 2 have different prices. So the dry hole, if they don't get water, you still pay anyway. And I was asking my question, why is it there's 2? Because if there's 2 options, that means that there's a problem with the first one, because ideally this is supposed to be straightforward. The same way you go and get a car fixed, you expect the car to be running afterwards. You can't pay a mechanic for a car that's not going to run. That means that you're not good at what you're doing in the first place, or you're not actually sure about what you're going to be doing. So it got me really thinking, but this was after the fact, because like I said, you know, it's a very emotional situation. Anyway, so it turns out that the guy that does the sighting really holds the keys to this scam. And I'll tell you how. Chances are the guy who's doing the sighting may not necessarily be the guy who owns the rig itself. So in most cases, the guy that is doing the sighting will come to your place, and let's say they don't find any water. Chances are, because there's the dry hole policy, they will just go on and say, yeah, there's water, knowing that they'll get paid anyway. That's how they make the money. Do you see what I mean? That's how the money is made. So whether the guy who comes with the rig comes in and drills, doesn't find water, the guy who brings the rig will say, listen, you hired me for a day, I've done the job, give me my $1,000. Simple as that. And I don't know whether these guys will give the sighting guy a cut, but usually there is something wrong with that system, because the wet hole policy now costs double the dry hole policy. So you ask yourself, if I'm going to pay double for the same spot that you're saying there's water, how does that work? Do you see how it becomes a bit tricky? So this is an industry which is very, very, very tricky. So you got to be on top of your game if you want to get a borehole drilled. But in my experience now, having spoken to a few people, in fact, I spoke to another gentleman from my YouTube channel. He gave me a lot of information regarding what happens with this borehole business. And yes, it all boils down to the person who's doing the sighting. He has to be very good at what he does. And usually, if that's the case, then you won't have any problems. You won't have any problems. And from what I got from this gentleman, I'm not sure if he wants his name mentioned, but he explained so much information that I was really satisfied that, yes, okay, at least now I have an understanding of how this industry works. Of course, there are companies where they will do the sighting and also the drilling themselves, but you also find situations where the sighter and the guy who comes and drills are totally different people. All right, let's move on to the next one. And these are replica parts or replica items that you may be purchasing. Things like your tiles, your roofing, and so on. What I noticed in Zimbabwe is you can have a product that looks similar to the original, therefore, of course, replicas. They look similar, but perform differently. For example, when I did my pavement, you'd find that the design of the block, should I call it a block or the brick? I don't know. You know that hexagon shape thingy? Yeah, the design of it is very similar to the original one that I requested for. But because these things were bought while I was in the UK, I could not verify that they're buying the right quality. So you'll find that this is across board, especially for people living in the diaspora. This one here, hits very hard. It's very, very difficult to really get to the bottom of, because it covers pretty much everything you're going to be buying. For example, you can be buying tiles. Yes, the tiles will look similar to the fake ones too. So someone could go into a bathroom boutique and show you the tile, even do a video, right? And once you approve and say, okay, that's the tile that I want, they will go and buy a very similar tile and install it. By the time you find out that that tile is not the one, it's too late. It's too late. How are you going to remove all the tiles in the house? It's impossible. And also the taps. A tap will look silver. It'll look like the design you want. But when you now go on the ground and have a feel of the tap, you'll find that, this tap is plastic, but coated in what? In silver. It's a silver coating. So it's very, very frustrating. And this scam is very, very popular. In fact, I lost a lot of money. I've actually done a complete video, a full video. I'll link to it in the video description below. Yeah, that one is a very, very painful one because every time we purchased items, it was a replica that was bought. But anyway, the way forward with this, I've seen a few companies that are advertising to people in the diaspora. I think it's best to just buy directly from the companies. Just buy directly from the companies, and then you send the people to go and collect. And even that, it has to be someone who's trustworthy because they can be swapped too. But I think that'll be more of a stretch. But if you pay, then at least you've minimized the risk of getting scammed. So that's something that you may want to think about. Purchase your items yourself directly from the company, and then the people on the ground will just go and pick it up and take it to wherever it needs to go. Anyway, so these are my top 5 scams in Zimbabwe. But as I mentioned, these scams can happen anywhere in the world. If you have any more scams you want to share with us please leave them in the comments box below. That will definitely help me and others as well. And finally, if you haven't subscribed yet, head over to ruwaorganic.com. This is our online community of like-minded people where we share ideas and in the hope of, achieving our goals. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for subscribing. Don't forget to share this video and also hit the subscribe button. By doing so, you'll be notified every time I release new videos. Until next time, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.